Time for two more.
You like that?
Good stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, a weekly guest for a second consecutive season, 9 to noon at the Friday Football Feast, representing The Athletic and theathletic.com. Can we get a witness and a raucous round of applause for one of our favorites, Alec Lewis, ladies and gentlemen, here to dissect Vikings and Rams.
I think it's a third season.
Like I said, for
Your hair looks good today.
so do your glasses.
Yeah.
A third season? Wow.
I think it's
Oh, that's right, 2022, yeah. And then the Dobbs experience then this year. Now, Alec.
The Dobbs experience.
Alec.
That's our whole season is now called, that entire season is called the Dobbs experience.
The big part of it, just ask Justin Jefferson. He got sent to the hospital due to the Dobbs experience.
Now, you started a game last week.
Joshua?
Dobbs did.
Right.
270 passing yards. I'm like, what? Where was that for the Vikings?
Yeah, well, you know where it is? It's in the off season with no playoff games, like it was last year for the 49ers.
That's true.
All right, 3-2. Alec just surprised me that one of my, and I think our favorite Minnesota Vikings just made All-Pro, was named All-Pro. Andrew Van Ginkel, second team All-Pro. The Gink is on fire.
That guy's been unbelievable.
Welcome.
And it was pretty obvious, like from the get-go, from the time they prioritized him in free agency, that he was just going to be a perfect fit. I mean, you have a defensive coordinator who knew exactly what this guy's about. But what's so funny about him, and you know this well because you've talked to him, is when you like stand next to him in the locker room or have a conversation with them, it's like you're talking like a really nice, humble second grade like math teacher.
Yeah.
And then on the field, he's just like wrecking shop in every capacity. He's one of the best. And this may be hyperbole, but I feel okay saying it. Probably one of the best coverage edge rushers in the history of the game. Like for his ability to drop into coverage off the line of scrimmage, it is unbelievable. Like how much he constricts space and allows them to do what they do. So yeah,
I like that statement. Now, I mean, we're not going to go through every edge in the history of the game.
That would be wild if we did.
But what I like about that statement is because edge rushers, so think Andrew Van Ginkel, Jonathan Grenard,
hybrid floaters,
floaters out of a 3-4.
You love the hybrid floater.
Rashawn Gary is technically an edge, even though he puts his hand in the grass a little. The one standing to the outside. Because the inside linebackers, like for my taste, I mean, if you're going to say linebacker and coverage and best ever, well, I don't know if it starts and stops for me with Bobby Wagner or Luke Kuechly. Zach Thomas was really good like that, but those are inside guys. So when it comes to edge guys, you may be onto something with the Gank.
Yeah, just ask Brian Flores out at practice today, and he'll probably tell you that. I mean, he might say the same thing. He would have a better perspective than I would.
Well, with Van Ginkel, you know, he's very quiet. I mean, but that's authentically who he is. It's not like he's quiet because he's trying to keep things from people or he doesn't care about the media or fans or anything. He's just a really, really humble, quiet guy from Rock Valley, Iowa. And the thing with Andrew, and I bet you've experienced this too, when you're talking to him or interviewing him, I mean, he looks you intently in the eyes. I mean, he does everything, you know, from like an interviewing standpoint, nodding the head, and then you wait for the answer, and he's just quiet, you know?
Maybe like a few weeks ago, I was doing a story where I asked like all of the newcomers, what about Justin Jefferson they've seen in person that they didn't know from afar? And I asked him a question. He goes, oh, man. And I'm thinking like, oh, here comes a great answer.
Yes.
He's like, he's just everything.
Right.
And I'm like, that's it?
What
like,
does that mean?
That's all it is.
Best.
But no, I mean, this guy.
He Fast Times at Ridgemont High fans, he's Spicoli without the pot. That's the only way to put it.
I will tell you, if he had caught that pass against Detroit, if he had caught that pass, I almost fell out of my chair. I mean, it was going to be a very big problem on press row. You're not supposed to cheer. You know, you can't do it. I was having a hard time. If he caught that ball.
Let me tell you about my situation with that pass. I bet I have him at preseason bet at like 75 to 1 to win defensive MVP.
Wow.
And so, he's been in the running. Usually his odds are like, third or fourth or fifth best.
Wow.
He had that early return for the touchdown against in week 1 against the Giants. In fact, that when I placed the bet was right after that game.
Yeah.
And then, and so I've been waiting for other splash moments. This was going to be the splash moment for Andrew Van Ginkel to bring home defensive MVP and for me to cash at 75 to 1. That's not going to happen.
The other thing I'll say
who's going to win it?
Patrick Surtain is probably going to win.
The other thing I'll say about Van Ginkel, and then we can, this is a lot of Van Ginkel talk, and I love it because I could talk about him for a while, but like he rarely ever misses a tackle. Like on the edge, if it's like a quick screen, if it's, the way he plays the run, like that stuff is just hidden yardage that he eliminates over and over again, and it's part of the reason why this defense has given them the opportunities that they've had.
All right, let's stick with the defense.
Okay.
We spent a lot of these shows together, you and I, Alec, talking about a run defense that at the beginning of the year was very, very good, smothering. Then we lost Pace, we've lost Cashman, and it was a little more inconsistent. But we've had Pace and Cashman back now for a couple of weeks together, and this run defense is still getting gouged. And let me give you some data behind it.
I think just 1 week, right? Or 2?
I think 2.
Green Bay, my bad.
Since week 13, here's the Vikings' defensive run ranks. So back to week 13. Yards per carry, 20th. Rush defense EPA, 17th. Yards after contact, 21st. And run defense success rate, 31st in the league since week 13. That's a pretty long sample size now, 6 games. So I'm nervous about the de-evolution of this running defense.
I got to be honest, I'm not. And here's why. I feel like the last 2 weeks you played 2 of the best running backs in the league.
Well, we got another good one coming.
There's no question. Kyron Williams is very good. Josh Jacobs is an electric back, and that run scheme is very good. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, you talk to people in that locker room, you talk to players, and they will admit to you, like, he is one of the 3 hardest guys to tackle in the NFL. Wow. So, just in terms of the types of guys they face, that contributes to the numbers. I also just think, like, a lot of those Jahmyr Gibbs numbers happened. Well, there was one explosive play early, the 27-yard touchdown run.
Right.
But other than that, early in that game, he had like 11 other carries for 17 yards. So they were shutting him down for the most part, other than the explosive. And then towards the back end of that game, he got loose a bunch of times where you can say the defense has to be better. But with the amount that the offense did not give them in that game, at some point they were just going to fall apart. So I'm just not crazy worried about the run defense. Among the worries, that's not high up there.
How about Grenard on Taylor Decker early in that game? What he was doing to him should be felonious in 48 states. And that played into the run defense, and it also plays into this season long, which would be age old as 2024 goes. Grenard would have some sacks, and then, O'Connell would start pointing out, I just, like X's and O's on Tuesday or with the Wednesday interview, stuff like that with the press conferences, he would start pointing out this guy's doing so many things that are hard to pick up on unless you watch it back 5 times, and how excited he was about Grenard against the run. And we saw it early off what you said, where he got 11 carries, Gibbs, and didn't get much out of it. Well, Grenard was blowing things up left and right.
Yeah, there's a statistic, and I don't know the exact stat, but it's Next Gen Stats, and it's the only 2 players in the NFL to have X amount of sacks, run stops, are Myles Garrett and Jonathan Grenard.
Wow.
He has been
company.
He has been exceptional from an all-around type of player at edge. He's been huge, and I'm glad we're talking about it because these edges are very important against this Rams rushing attack. If you go back and rewatch the Week 8 game, the Rams did a lot of motion to kick out the edge rushers on the side of the line of scrimmage, and it's going to be incumbent upon those guys to play the run really well to stop Kyron Williams. And it's worth talking about because Kyron Williams, to me, is a very underrated back across the league.
Yep.
And their running game is very dynamic because they have 2 receivers in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua who can block very effectively in the run game. So, stopping this Rams rushing game this weekend is going to be huge. And I felt like in the first matchup, going back and rewatching it, they did an okay job at times, but you're going to have Matthew Stafford in 3rd and long situations to win this game, which is going to be a very tough game.
I'm going to get one other thing on the edge and the running game. Matthew Stafford's a very good play action quarterback. and they will play action to a play that looks like it's going to be a lateral running play, and Stafford will motion that way, running back's going that way, and then he'll pull back. And for those edge rushers, you got to respect Kyron Williams' ability to get to the edge, and if he gives you just that moment of pause as an edge rusher about, whoa, is this a run versus pass? That's an advantage, and it's one of the things Stafford does really well.
Cooper Kupp will bust that butt, and I'm glad Alec brought it up. He's one of the best run blocking wide receivers in the NFL, and that week he got off because McVay knows he put discretion as the better part of valor. It's like, yeah, I know I might get the Vikings or I might get the Lions. Well, I beat one, and I know I can beat the other. I don't care where it is. But resting Kupp and getting juice in those legs in the run blocking force when you attach him to a tackle or you attach him to a tight end. And then he cracks back and he just busts you up, man, when he's healthy and happy. Now, Nacua, you mentioned that too, is I guess I haven't asked anybody or followed it. Puka Nacua is a tough customer in the run blocking game.
Oh, this guy's gritty.
Really good.
He's also, I'll tell you this, from the time he came back in week 8, he on 40% of his routes, he's being targeted, which is the most in the NFL. Like, they are throwing him a ton of passes, and I understand why, because he is extremely dynamic, and it's very interesting. This offense, the Rams offense, is very much like quick drops, 3-step drops, quick passing game.
Yes.
The Vikings is so much more vertical shots, deep over routes. They're very different in that regard, and that's why, like, I remember in that first matchup, coming out of it, a lot of the question was like, why did the Vikings not get any pressure? And there were times where I did feel like they could have gotten more pressure, but also the Rams offense is designed to get the ball out quick to eliminate pressure from being able to get there. And so that poses a challenge because of the receiver's ability to set up in zones. It's a tough offense to stop in that way.
All right, can you guys help me with this then? Because, like, if you look back at the schedules these teams play, okay, the Vikings won games against two teams that are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They beat Green Bay twice, and they beat Houston. And the only reason Houston is in the postseason is because each division is required to have a team.
Right.
I mean,
that division.
Talking about a win against Houston is like bragging about getting straight A's at junior college. So with Houston, all right, whatever. You got to play who's in front of you, and if you can kill them, which they did. So if you look at the rest of it, it's wins against teams that are not in the postseason, a lot of low-rated races in there, but the Vikings found a way to get to the finish line first. I think the Rams have beaten two teams maybe that are in the playoffs, 2 or 3, but they beat Buffalo.
That's a big win.
It's a signature win because it was late in the season,
in Buffalo, too, if I recall correctly.
So here's where I need you to help me, and we'll start with you, Charch. After everything we've just talked about, and after the Rams resting their best guys, getting their preferred left guard Avila back.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, the other guy, the guy they used when we went there was a complete L.
Bo Limmer?
Yeah, and he got better as the season went on. Their rookie center was a complete L when we got there with penalties and stuff. He's gotten himself better. I understand. Higbee's back. Okay, Hawkinson's back. We know all the factors. We also know the Rams beat the Vikings in Week 8.
Yep.
Why did the Vikings open 2.5-point favorites, and why are they favored in this game? And I'll start with you.
Because of the totality of the regular season. The Vikings,
a totality that included a loss to the Rams.
Includes a loss to the Rams, but not many other losses, right?
Okay.
It's a 3-loss season, which in most years puts you on the number 1 seed, and I think it's the totality of a very good season and a belief from at least the betting public that Sam Darnold is going to bounce back in his second game.
And bet shops, Vegas, we'll just say the 702, they don't set lines making opinions. Okay, there are power rankings.
Exactly.
The home field, well, the home team gets 3 points. That's as antiquated as a rotary phone. It doesn't play into it.
What's a rotary phone?
Home field plays into it, but it ain't the standard 3 points. But they're in the business of setting lines that create equal action. So there can be $1 million bet on one side, $1 million bet on the other side, and they're guaranteed to scoop $200,000 and run their business.
Right.
They don't care who wins. They just don't want to get beat. But they set that thing at 2.5. And the Squares or whomever might be the Sharps. They came in and bet the Rams down to 1.
Yep.
And now we have a venue switch, and now it's back up to 2.5. So people are crushing the Vikes again. This thing is just perplexing.
Well, I'll tell you this. Like, going back and rewatching that game, I mean, the Rams benefited very early in that game from like 3 really brutal penalties, I thought. There were like third down penalties where the Vikings are playing man coverage and Byron Murphy gets flagged for like having his finger on Puka Nacua. And it's 3rd and 7, he's flagged.
Yep.
Did the drive continue?
Great point.
Then you also, you'll remember the Matthew Stafford play. He scrambles out of the pocket.
Couldn't believe it.
Jonathan Grenard grabs him on the shoulder. Somehow he ducks under Harrison Phillips.
Yeah.
And the Vikings secondary just like stopped running and he found Cooper Kupp in the end zone. If that play doesn't happen, if some of those flags don't happen, if Jalen Naylor catches a pass in the red zone that raises his hands and falls on the ground, then the Vikings were very much in that game.
Yeah.
They beat themselves in the second half with a ton of self-inflicted penalties.
Yep.
And so
and penalties that weren't called.
I wish people could see your face. I mean, you're
good.
You're freaking out.
I'm good.
But so I mean, you go back and look at that game. The Vikings were very much in the thick of it.
Yeah.
They could have very easily won that game. So I think that's why the spread was what it was, is what it is.
Rams don't hurt
We are, right?
themselves very often, right? We talked about the turnovers. It just Stafford's not somebody who's going to give you 3 picks in a game. That's not going to happen. Stafford is just so careful with the ball. They don't fumble. This is a team. Now, they don't create a ton of turnovers either, but they're not going to hand the game to Minnesota that way.
Well, the thing we haven't talked about, and I've been on for however long, is the Rams' defensive front. And to me, this is going to be the game. Can the Vikings pass protection unit hold up against Jared Verse, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, and Braden Fisk? They are young guys. They are energetic. They are physical. They are fast. If this pass protection unit cannot hold up and they are getting to Sam Darnold early, it is going to be a hard night. I do think the Viking staff is good enough and smart enough to scheme that to create their scheme around holding up against that unit, which to me gives me faith that they will be able to find guys across the field against this secondary that I don't think they don't play as aggressively as Detroit.
Yeah.
They don't play as much man coverage as Detroit. It's a different deal. They can try to do it. Like, that's been a whole thing this week.
Yeah.
Oh, well, teams just copy what Detroit's play style is the way they played. The Rams operating in that same play style that's not their style. That's not what they do.
Brilliant.
They could try it. I don't know if I'd recommend that.
So Tuesday with O'Connell, during that time that I get with him at the facility, I kind of, asked him about that as Detroit, plays this defense no matter what the name is on the back of the jersey, because if you're Kendall Vildor and you've had problems, we're not going to change the defense so you can play 50 plays. You're going to play it the way it's supposed to be played, and if it doesn't work, we're going to replace you. I got a lot of respect for that. And when I brought it up a different way, but talking about copycat, what you said, O'Connell was like, well, not everybody can do it that way. And he just pretty much ended it like that. Now, for the Rams, okay, some intel I've gotten, that I don't know if it's public or not, it's not that big or whatever, just some people with whom I'm chatting. Omar Speights, okay, 48 for the LA Rams.
I haven't gotten to him in my pregame study.
Okay, well, just remember this, because there are some people within the local covenant who are like, he made his starting debut, I think that's what I was told, against the Vikings week 8, and had some problems. He ain't the same guy. And he stole the show in the preseason. He was one of those, and they waited, then they had to use him. But then they're like, wow, this is cool, and then it kept getting better. 48, I think, is his number. And supposedly he is a problem to go along with Verse and Fisk and Young and Hoyt, who Wes Phillips shouted out the other day because of his size and his strength. And Turner, who's the bomb. You're absolutely right. And secondly, with the short game and Stafford and everything, in that Week 8 game, see if you remember this. They were beating the Vikings
a long day.
On shallow crosses, short stuff, quick hitters, get a block, try to take 6, make it 12 yards. Well, in the second half, some point in the second half, I think it was third quarter, maybe early fourth, the Vikings defense solved some things, and it started to get a little difficult for Stafford, and he started to get second and third and longer. Do you remember where it would be heading to? Where's the press box? Behind the Rams bench?
I don't.
Okay,
think
it was going away from Bursich and I as we called the game behind the Rams bench to the right of us. Stafford just went on a 7-step drop, threw the ball as far as he could to the left, and there was nobody close. So somebody like DeMarcus,
the
left sideline near the end zone, and nobody was ever going to catch it.
But he missed it.
Well, no, he didn't miss it. He's like, back off. Okay, if you don't back off, you're going to have to back off. And he just threw one away to show we will go deep. And they backed off, and then he started to get what he wants. That's how fast Matthew Stafford plays in games like that.
He sees the field very well. And so for Brian Flores, like it is a tough challenge. In that game, like they were doing a lot of drop 8 stuff, which for the people listening, you only rush 3, you drop 8 in coverage, and then Matthew Stafford has to look through all those bodies and try to find guys. They were doing stuff on third down where they were showing man coverage and then dropping it. They were trying to give him as much as they could give him. But there's no question. I mean, the other aspect of like the Verse, Turner, all of that is the Vikings now have Cam Robinson, and I know like we've given him credit. He stepped in, came in, but like
he's not Darisaw.
He has not been exceptional. I believe he's given up the most pressures of any offensive lineman.
But he's not Quessenberry Cole off the bench.
No. And then Ed Ingram is no longer playing, and he was in that game, and now it's Dalton Risner. So, like, to me, there's a lot of interesting matchups that are different than the first time around. But I do think, and I just feel like I should say this, like, for as tough as this team is, like, this Vikings team, if they put together the correct plans, if they can block up the front, I think they're going to have a very good chance to win the game.
Well, they had the correct plan at Ford Field. I mean, there were 5 touchdowns left on the field.
Right.
And Van Ginkel.
I heard one of your calls.
Yeah.
We're
at Buffalo Wild Wings Savage for the Friday Football Feast, and collectively we're going to play. We're going to play that game where it's like you hope this happens and this happens, then this has to happen. Where yes, we are hoping the Vikings win on Monday night against the Arizona Cardinals, against the LA Rams. Right? We want the Vikings to win. Right? We want the Commanders to win at Raymond James. Right? We, of course, want to get a game at U.S. Bank Stadium. We, of course, want the Packers to beat the Eagles, right? All right, Nordo, 3-2.
I feel like a jerk. I'm rooting for the Pack to win just one game. And I regretfully say I'm rooting for the Pack to beat Philly. Come on!
With you. We'll be right back.
Shall we begin?
I don't know why the minutia of this moves me the way it does. I think it's because maybe I've seen it before with what the Rams scoring against the Vikings on that Thursday night game, but I've never seen it in succession like this where, I'm putting some things together for the game calling depth chart, and I'm looking back at that game, and all the touchdowns are 70 yards. Every touchdown drive is 70 yards because they were 33 and change on the time of possession, and I wanted to figure out how they got there. And some of their drives were 3 minutes, some were 7 minutes or whatever, but all the touchdowns were 70 yards. So then that indicates you got your guy, the Alabama kid, banging it out of the end zone, touchback, start at the 30, score a touchdown from 70 yards. It just fascinates me that Josh Oliver will have a touchdown. They'll come back next drive, 70-yard touchdown. Trent Sherfield Sr. scores. Cool. 70-yard touchdown next possession. Field goal. Cool. 70-yard touchdown. All of their touchdowns not only were 70 yards after Viking scores, but they were the possession after the score.
It was good to go back and rewatch that game because you got to see what it looked like to score in the red zone. I kind of forgot what that looked like. It was great. It was really good to see some of those crossing routes and see that.
What a front runner!
Wow,
they scored 11on touchdowns from 14 trips inside the 20.
Right, it's a joke.
You're a front runner.
No, it's a joke. No,
go Todd.
No, the reality is, Mike
Price, roll Tide.
I think it was both defense. I mean, that was unbelievable.
Well, I know, so are you.
No. It was both defenses making the offense matriculate its way down the field. That was kind of the game, and I expect it to be pretty similar. Like, neither of these defenses wants to give up explosive plays. They don't want to give up DeMarcus Robinson over the tops. They don't want to get, that type of stuff. Both teams are going to want to eliminate. And the red zone thing, like, for me, it's a joke because I think, like, so much of what we saw, I looked this up. In Kevin O'Connell's time here, when they've reached the red zone 4 times in a game, they have scored a touchdown in every game but 2.
Yeah.
The Jaguars game earlier this year, which was a just like slog, and then this past weekend. So if they get to the red zone 4 times, the odds are overwhelming that they're going to score touchdowns if this happens on Monday night.
I mentioned this in passing to the Week 8 game, just kind of not with you, but 9 to noon, just putting together a bunch of different things and then spitballing. Is DeMarcus Robinson, all right? We can go ahead and be like, he's not Cooper Kupp, he's not Puka Nacua. You can go ahead and take Kupp and Nacua's playoff games and maybe triple them, or certainly double them, and that's how many DeMarcus has played in.
Chiefs.
Robinson is a dog. He's tough, scrappy guy who's had to work super hard for everything he has. He's won a Super Bowl. He's caught touchdowns in the postseason, and he got 2 targets, 2 receptions against the Vikings Week 8. They both were touchdowns because you get so wrapped up over the other guys, you forget about him. And if they do that again, if they forget about him, man, he will scorch you again.
No question. It's with Cooper Kupp not getting all these targets, I had assumed that Robinson's usage had gone up. Nope, not at all. 3 of the last 4 games, he has not caught a pass.
He's a
0.
trick.
He is a trick.
Yep.
I think he's on the field constantly. His snap percentage is like 80%.
Oh,
but
wow.
I think it's just they run specific spots to him. If he happens to be open, they send it his way. But yeah, he's very binary. 0 or big game, 2 touchdowns against the Vikings.
Yep.
But 3 of the last 4 games, no catches for DeMarcus Robinson, even with Cooper Kupp languishing, which is a little bit odd.
I'm very interested to see like what the Puka Nacua plan is going to be. I'm sure you heard earlier this week, and you talked to Kevin O'Connell about it, but it was so weird. I'll never forget like being in my hotel room, getting no notification that morning on Thursday, like Puka Nacua might actually play. I'm like, what? Like it just came out of nowhere.
It did.
And the way that Brian Flores talked about it earlier this week is like we were kind of scrambling at the last second to figure out a way to kind of stop him. I don't know if he said that as gamesmanship. I don't, you never know because these guys are very sharp and it's always a chess match.
Right. And
Brian Flores is as sharp as they come, and I find it very hard to believe a coordinator who thinks as sharply as he does would have just not had anything planned for Puka Nacua that day. But, I mean, he is the focal point of what they do offensively. Like, Cooper Kupp has been so productive over time that I think we're conditioned to think he is the guy, and he is one of their guys, no question. But what Puka, like the target share that he's getting, the way their offense is built around him right now, to me, like stopping this offense beyond the running game starts there.
All right, I'm going to hit you with this line. Okay. Tell me if you want the over-under. Puka Nacua targets 10.5.
Ooh, that's a good number. It seems high. He's trying to suck us into the under on that. Ooh, that's a good number.
I may take over.
I'm going to take under, thinking I'm going to play a tricky game, thinking it's 9 or 10.
Is that the Vegas odds?
I don't know what it is, but I see a scenario here where he's at 12, 13, 14 targets in this game.
Yeah.
Because if the Rams are going down, they're going down with Puka Nacua getting plenty of opportunities to change the tide of that game because he is. Last week we said, show me Jahmyr Gibbs' box score, and I'll tell you who won.
Yeah.
And that ended up being accurate.
Yep.
This one, show me Puka Nacua's box score, and I will tell you who wins this game.
And to me, it's also where the score of this game early is very important, I think. If you can force the Rams to be like just pass only, and they can't like create 5 yards on the ground or early downs with Kyron Williams, like that's been a formula that the Vikings have succeeded all year with, but I really think in this game it could be beneficial.
I want to talk about Aaron Jones. We haven't talked about the Vikings running game here at all yet, all day. First, Aaron Jones played 17 games. We were told by Packer fans that he would break down, when we needed him most, Aaron Jones would not be there. Aaron Jones has played every game.
Yeah, but he's breaking down during games, which is a problem.
That has happened. That has happened. It happened last week. But Nevertheless, he is suited up for 17 games, and I think that's a win by itself.
Yep.
Rams' run defense has improved a lot over the last 5 weeks. No back has topped 70 yards. They're giving up 4.1 yards per carry, and they are third best in yards after contact. This was a leaky run defense early with a lot of young players and rookies that you've already discussed. That run defense is getting cohesive. I just believe, especially with the version of Sam that we saw last week, you have to have balance in this offense, and Aaron Jones can be a huge part of the reason the Vikings win.
Yeah, and early in the game, to me, I mean, it's gonna. I'm just so fascinated to see the way that Kevin O'Connell calls the game early. Does he try to get Sam, like the basketball version of it is like see the ball go through the hoop? That way you feel confident as the game progresses. Like for me, it felt like. And I understood why Kevin O'Connell last week was so confident and convicted that Sam would find it, because he has found it over and over again. So if you're Kevin O'Connell to just all of a sudden shift because he looks a little off, I mean, it's a hard, in real time, it's a hard one, even though I know fans thought it was such an obvious thing.
That's how I felt, honestly.
Yeah, and a lot of fans felt like that. And it's not for me to say that fans shouldn't have felt that way, but when a guy has responded from struggles as much as he has, I can understand the conviction from the coach, and to change the way you're calling plays would signal to the quarterback that you don't have that conviction. So that's the balance that you play. And I'm not saying that Kevin O'Connell did the right thing, but I just think there are layers to it that are important. And I'm fascinated in the beginning of this game because to me, running the ball early, running the ball successfully early, finding completions, quick completions early, that will only help the course of this game that I expect Sam Darnold to bounce back in, because that's what he's done his whole career.
I just want to pivot for just a second to one thing from last week's game. Who's the Lions cornerback that got knocked out of the game?
Terrion Arnold.
Terrion Arnold gets knocked out of the game. Pretty serious injury, it looked like. In comes our guy, Kindle Vildor. How about we never threw a Kindle Vildor. I mean, in my mind, like the moment that guy puts a cleat on the field, he is a magnet.
My man, I'll see you at the game Monday. Thanks for stopping by.
Of course, always fun.
Alec Lewis, ladies and gentlemen, The Athletic, theathletic.com. Become a subscriber as all of 9 to noon does. Final segment from Buffalo Wild Wings Savage.
I can't wait. I can't wait until
all right, let's close with a common thread. We went through the AFC and NFC with point spreads and fantasy players. We're now down to Vikings at Rams. Minnesota favored by 2.5. Which way would you bet it? And from a fantasy standpoint, which one or two do you like best and why?
Well, let's for each of these games, we've talked about how they got here. The Vikings got here by virtue of winning 14 regular season games, which is remarkable, and they did it with the prowess of Sam Darnold and the Reclamation Project that all of our listeners are very familiar with. Mm-hmm. Justin Jefferson stayed true to the talent that he has, and Jordan Addison, I think maybe the most under-discussed development of this season was Jordan Addison turning into an extremely reliable second receiver, Paul. When we came out of last year, we didn't know for sure if he was going to build on his 10 touchdown season, but he did beautifully. And the Rams got here by really just virtue of getting past that Puka Nacua Cooper Cup injuries that they had at the beginning of the year.
Cooper Nacua would be tough.
Very good.
He can really run block, and I mean, what a hybrid.
And think of the beard prowess that they would have as a hybrid right there. And Matthew Stafford doing what he always does. A defense that got better over the course of the season. Yeah. But it's been a shockingly inconsistent offense. I think I
like TJ Munt in this game.
You do?
Or TJ Oliver.
TJ Munt.
Anyway, continue. We're almost out of time. Sorry.
No, that's all right. My heart is with the Vikings. I'm a little bit of I think like many Viking fans, I'm emotionally damaged by this team over the past several years. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I really want to believe that the Sam Darnold we saw for the 16 games leading up to week 17 is the real Sam Darnold, and I don't want to just be captured by recency and that one bad game. I think Sam Darnold's battles back here. I think the Vikings win.
Yeah.
I think I'm scared to say it, but I think the Vikings win.
He's Paul Charchi, and I'm Paul Allen. Jared Wells, the engineer. Round of applause for the master mixer. Kara and Grace with Nick Madden's Street Team. Thank you. And most importantly, thank everybody here at Buffalo Wild Wings Savage and those of you listening to KFAN as much as you do. We next will chat with you Monday. Vikings and Arizona, 3-2. Vikings and LA Rams.
There we go.
From Arizona. God bless all of you. Have a great week and enjoy the playoffs. Bye-bye. Thank you.
If it's good news or money, leave a message.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.